Hey man,
Hey,
how you doing?
good.
Um, Welcome to Two Boring Old Men, our first ever show. My name's Bob. This is Jeff, who I'll hand you over to in a minute. I'm 60 years of age, a very old man. Boring, I don't know. I'm a legal researcher. I'm still working. Author of two books. One about Paxil, and one is a fictional novel which was released last year. This is Jeff, my partner, and I'll leave it to you, Jeff.
Hey, my name is Jeff, and I'm 58 years old. Been living in Boquete, 6 years or so. I am fully retired. I read in the morning, play golf in the afternoon, then happy hour, and drink the night away.
Every hour's a happy hour in
It
Boquete.
can be, especially after an early game of golf. If you got, even if you stop at 11, it's happy hour.
Okay, so that's a little bit about us, and on this show, we've had some power issues with. If you're from Boquete, you totally understand what power issues are all about, and of course, we can't record if there's no electric. So hopefully, we can get through this without any more power issues. On this show, we're going to discuss the spooky. And there's a lot of spooky shows out there. I'd like to start off by saying I first got into the whole. I wouldn't say I'm really into it. I watch it with a skeptical eye. I got into the whole ghost paranormal thing. There was a show in England called Most Haunted, and it was a husband and wife. And she, Yvette Fielding was her name. She used to be a children's TV presenter. And, obviously I'm growing up and I didn't see this child's presenter anymore because I don't watch children's TV. I'm not that weird. And the next time I saw her was in 2002, and there was a show called Most Haunted, and they were half-hour shows, and it was Yvette Fielding and her husband Carl, and it was pretty scary viewing. It was on at 9 o'clock at night.
How old were you?
I think I was in my 30s, late 20s, early 30s, and my kids, they was at the age where I'd tell them you can watch it, but if you have nightmares, that's on you. And it was basically them visiting supposedly haunted castles and asylums and pubs, because it was set in England and Wales and sometimes Scotland. And like the half-hour shows didn't really seem to be enough. You were just getting into it, and then it would finish. So I think the following season they started and they were doing hour shows, and it became more interesting. But it was always about, let's tell you about the place first, and then it to me it just seemed like filler.
Context.
Yeah, because
It's context.
they hadn't caught enough on camera to convince the people at home that what we've seen is really paranormal. So there was always a lot of filler. So I kind of got into that, and then they would do live specials. It would be like a 3 hour show on Halloween,
Like live.
like live shows. So all the crew would be there,
Okay.
and back they'd have an audience in a cinema or a room, and they would be sort of like reacting to this live feed that they were doing. And basically, like the live shows, when you analyze them, not at the time obviously, but when you look back on them, you would think shit, I just heard a couple of noises, which could have been anything. Now, well, this is what it was. But the beautiful thing about Most Haunted was that they would always have a guest psychic medium on with them. Now, my opinion of psychic mediums, I think they're really, really brilliant cold readers. They can, yes, they can hit on certain things, but what people don't pick up on is the things that they miss on. And when they miss on something, they will say, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
So I might be a psychic medium, and I'll say to Jeff, "Hey, there's a woman, and her name begins with R," and Jeff will go, "I don't know any woman in particular whose name begins with R." I
never ask their names.
Yeah, but I then, as a psychic medium, will say, "Yes, you have."
Yeah.
John Edward does it a lot. Now, I do like John Edward because I think he's got one of them warm-looking kind of Osmond faces,
Yeah.
So he's kind of endearing and he kind of reels you in. Anyway, I digress, and I'll let you get on to our favourite ghost adventurers in a minute. But yeah, so like Most Haunted would have these live shows, and they would have a psychic medium, and one of them became a regular. His name was Derek Acora.
Yeah, did he have a space between his teeth and stuff?
No,
No.
This one. I mean, he was quite famous in his own right.
Well, he was on Ghost Adventures as well, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Well, now this guy, Derek Acora, he was kind of camp. He was from Liverpool, so he had a bit of a Liverpool accent. And he would sort of like go on to these shows, and when nothing was happening, he would then tell you what he could see through his, it wasn't a guardian angel, it was like, I think he used to call this person an advisor, and it was an old Red Indian that he called Sam. I'd never heard a Red Indian in my life called Sam. Anyway, he said, Sam says this and Sam says that. Now, as the show went on, this Derek became more unbelievable. When nothing was happening, apart from the odd knock here and there, he would then become possessed. Now, it's recently come to light that there was a parapsychologist on the show who was there to offer balance. So Derek Acora and the team would hear noises and, a chair might move or something, or a window might open or a door. The parapsychologist was there really much to pretty much to investigate it. Say, yeah, look, there was a window open down there, and that's why A, B, and C happened. Anyway, this parapsychologist didn't really believe that Derek Acora, this psychic medium, was who he said he was. So he told the crew that they were going to this place, and he told the crew to put out a message that one of the spirits that roams this big, huge hall in England was called Richard. And he lost his wife, and she was called Mary. Now, I don't know whether you know, Jeff, in England, Richard
has to be a common name.
Well, a short version of Richard is Dick.
Of course.
Okay. So during the
no one wants a short dick.
Well, exactly. But this is brilliant because during this show, and you can get it on YouTube, during this one particular show, he had been given false information by this parapsychologist.
Fantastic.
Or the parapsychologist had told the crew to tell him this. And he was on this show, and he came out and he says, and he was possessed. Dick, he's here. Mary's here. Dick, Mary loves Dick. Mary loves Dick. Now, he didn't know what he was saying at the time, but the presenter, Yvette Fielding, you could see her smirking. She couldn't hold the laughter in. And it was all a big setup. So that's what first got me into the whole ghost thing. And then I think it was 6 years later, Ghost Adventurers
God, they
from
started.
America
They started.
hit the air. So I'm going to hand over to Jeff now to tell you all about Zach Bagans and Ghost Adventurers.
Well, I used to watch the Travel Channel all the time, and there was always these shows, Destination Truth, or looking for strange happenings. And Ghost Ventures was created. Zach Bagans and Nick Groff, who's no longer with them, and that's a story in itself. And Aaron Goodwin, and they were comical enough to. I mean, I have no thought one way or another really about ghosts or no ghosts, and but they made it interesting, and they had good chemistry. But after a couple of years, it started falling apart, and it really became the Zach Bagans show, and that's where it's like Jan gives long speeches, gets possessed all the time. I can see things that you can't. Flash images.
He. So, like when the show first started, was it like Ghost Adventurers where they would just do like half-hour shows, or was it from the get-go like full-on 1 hour shows? Can you remember?
Nope, 1 hour show. And over time, it was always a little introduction of context. And like you said with the show,
Most Haunted.
Yep. They give you a context that's geared toward the scary. There's so much other context or facets of the context that they could talk about, but they're building you up for what they're about to do. And, and it all started from a 2-hour documentary that they did and at this hotel.
This was their first show.
Yeah, and there was a 2-hour documentary which you can watch yourself. And they're walking through. Nothing's happening. Nothing happened after. But all of a sudden, they're walking through the cellar room, and it's huge. And out of nowhere, a big 2x4 flies through the air with a brick.
I saw that.
Yeah. And that really started them off, and whether that was made up or not.
I excuse the barking. I did actually see that and thought that was one of the most compelling things that I'd ever seen. If you're going to catch something on camera, you don't just want it moving a chair or opening a window or a door. That actual footage, not only did a brick lift from the floor and toss itself across the room, when you analysed it, or when they analysed it, you saw a plank of wood and it was literally levitating in the air. Now, God knows what that was. I really don't know. And could it have been fake, to attract more viewers? Because if you're going to put something out there that is pretty good evidence that ghosts and whatever exist, you're going to attract more viewers to your next show. And I do remember that. So do you still watch it, Ghost Adventures?
Yes, I do. And they're on their like 28th or 29th season, but a lot of times they have 2 seasons in 1 year or whatever. But they have been on since the early 2000s when I first started watching them, and At first, I just found the synergy between the characters good, and they would go to places that I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like Easton Penitentiary
Yeah.
is one of the most haunted things in America, uh, even outside of them. So they went to places like that. But after a while, you could tell they were just making shit up. One the host Zach Bagans, he would go on long rants of, well, I mean, I called it nonsense, really. I mean, he's talking flash images, and I can see them, and blah blah blah. And, you ever come across a building and it knows you have the ability to see and I'm like, it's a building, it doesn't know shit.
Now, hasn't he on occasion, when he becomes possessed, hasn't he grabbed members of his crew and held them up against the wall?
Yeah.
Um,
One of the best ones that I ever saw, where he was started choking himself. So they're at Goatman's Bridge, which is supposed to be pretty haunted, right? And Aaron gets tossed through the air, 20, 30 feet.
by Zach.
No, by just something. He just got
Jesus.
thrown, right? And then Zach, of course, if anyone's going to get possessed, it's always Zach. Zach is the one who just, and that's funny, right? Because I don't think the other guys can actually pull it off. But he's such a doofus about it all. He makes up this shit, and Eddie Sane, human is would just laugh.
I think like what sets Ghost Adventurers apart from Most Haunted is that Zach, he's a big beefcake. He's a very muscly guy. He's a handsome guy, and they always make sure that they wear the right clothes to make them look bigger than what they are. But I do remember when I first watched Ghost Adventurers that Aaron was a really, really big, fat guy.
Yeah.
He lost a lot of weight. So,
but you're talking 20 years. So he was probably in his late 20s, overweight. Now he's in his 40s. His health, so he probably had, he probably did it on purpose.
So there has been a lot of there's a lot of YouTubers out there that have heard from people that used to be on the show, both Most Haunted and Ghost Adventurers, members of the crew or members of the public, where they went to visit an alleged haunted place.
And the funny thing, what's the British show called again?
Most Haunted.
Yeah, and so after I started watching Ghost Adventures, I immediately found that, and of course, it's been going for a long time, and I found it equally hilarious.
It is. Like I say, I mean, a lot of stuff. I remember I was watching a show, Most Haunted, back in England, and pebbles were sort of like dropping from the ceiling. So you'd hear a noise on the laminated floor in a haunted castle.
A decapitated,
so like pebbles would just drop from the ceiling and land on the floor. And you thought, when you're watching it, you get so emotionally involved in it. And then you've got the music as well, and it kind of creates this scary scene. Anyway, it's since come to light that one of the crew, and this is through a whistleblower, one of the camera crew that worked on the show, said, obviously that never happened. Pebbles didn't come through the ceiling. It was one of the crew members threw pebbles in. Now, whether or not the hosts of the show told him to do that or knew at the time that it was him, who knows?
But the funny thing is, the castle's old, and things are going to crack, things are going to fall. And that's the thing, with a lot of these shows is they got to start making things up, of course, right? And like you had a whistleblower, right? And you just can't command spirits. If you could, you just can't, make them show up for an hour show or
Well,
anything.
not unless you're Derek Acora and Mary Loves Dick, of course. But there was, getting back to Most Haunted just for a minute. Derek Acora, the psychic medium, he's dead now. He died.
Oh no shit!
Yeah, he died.
Yeah,
I don't
didn't
think
know that.
he predicted his own death. Which, if you're going to die, you think, well, I'm going to die of heart disease. I better do something about that.
right.
So he never predicted that. But there was one show, I'll never forget it. It was filmed in the dark, infrared cameras. And they was in this bedroom, and Yvette was sitting on the edge of the bed, and Derek was going into his usual possession stuff. And he said, the wardrobe. So the camera kind of panned to the wardrobe. And then all of a sudden he said, bees. I keep seeing bees. And then because it was filmed in infrared, from the wardrobe came these white little orbs flying away as if they was bees. Now,
of course, yeah.
Many years ago, I was looking at photographs of apparent orbs or spirits caught on camera. It weren't video, it was photos. And I looked into it. It really intrigued me. And I learned that if you had a digital camera or even a cell phone, and back then I'm on about the old Blackberries, if you picked up dust between your thumb and finger and took a picture, but above the lens you just sprinkled the dust, it would pick up orbs. When the picture came out, it would pick up orbs, and sure enough, I did that. And some of the orbs I caught was absolutely brilliant.
But
and I could have passed them off as like spirit.
But you walk by a window that has the sun directly shining, and you can just see the dust just flowing through the air. 100%. And here's the funny thing about Ghost Adventures is at the beginning, Zach Bagan, the host, didn't believe in orbs. He thought they were ridiculous. They didn't offer anything. And years later, of course, they need to keep the show going. Now, orbs is one of the major things he looks for. It's just too funny. He contradicts himself all the time.
I also heard that Zach is very, very powerful. I don't know what channel they're on now. I think they was on the Travel Channel. History Channel, Discovery Channel. I don't know what channel they're doing now.
They got all merged. Travel, blah blah blah, history.
There was one guy who's on YouTube now, and he held it in for many years, and recently came out and said, and the only reason he's came out and said it is because everybody else is doing it. So it's kind of jumping on the bandwagon. But he did say he had a YouTube channel, and it was really, really popular. And there are many YouTube channels that do these videos, that upload these videos without all the nonsense. And there's one in particular called that I like. It's called Nuke's Top 5, and Nuke basically narrates videos that are sent into him, and doesn't try and convince the viewer that what they're seeing is paranormal. He always ends each segment with, I'll leave it for you to decide.
There it is.
But some of the footage on there is really compelling, but you don't really get a lot of backstory. So I guess why Zach Bagans does the backstories when they start the show is for that reason. So Nuke's Top 5, I'll put a link up later on, is really, really worth the watch. They last for about half an hour. He does 5, sometimes 10 scary videos that have been sent in, and some of them are so compelling. But of course, we're only seeing a little bit of the video, and the way that cameras are now and AI and stuff like that. Excuse me, the dog's barking. And AI and stuff like that. It's really easy to fake.
Yeah.
Now, I heard a story many years ago.
Bloody Mary.
No, I mean
Bloody Mary.
this story.
Oh, I did it
this
3
story really stuck with me, and the reason I bring it up is because I'm pretty active on Twitter, or I used to be for certain reasons. I'm not anymore because I've kind of retired from that world. But the story that I heard years ago was really fucking spooky. And it was 4 people from England went to France, and they caught the ferry over, and they was all in the same car. And once they got to Calais, which is the port you land in from Dover in England, they had to then drive to their destination, which was apparently a good 5 or 6 hours away from Calais. And of course, they didn't know the way. There was no sat navs. Back then, they had to rely on the old paper maps. And,
young people will never understand.
Well, no.
Yeah.
I mean,
the hood of the car, map.
I'm at a loss. I don't understand maps. I don't understand sat navs. So I'm the worst passenger to be with. Anyway, so they needed to get from A to B, and then on the way there, they got very tired, and they saw this hotel. And they pulled into this hotel, and it was beautiful and all the rest of it. And then they went in. Do you have 2 rooms? 2 couples. Do you have 2 rooms? Yes, we do. And they could not believe how cheap it was. It was so cheap.
Like they went back in time.
Well, here's the thing. They then had dinner. And again, they could not believe how cheap it was. In the morning, they woke up, they checked out, said their goodbyes, they checked out, got to their destination, spent 2 weeks there. Can't remember where it was. Travelling back to Calais, they said to themselves, let's go back to that hotel. It was cheap. It was really nice. First time round, good experience. Anyway, so they couldn't remember where it was because they happened to just fall upon it when they were driving to their destination. Anyway, they found it, but it was desolate. It was a building that was crumbling, and they could not believe it. And they swear that this was the truth. Now, the reason I bring this up, I've been carrying this story with me for many years and thought, that is really convincing. Is it real, or is it just a tale? Well, somebody posted on Twitter a few weeks ago pretty much the same story, except it was in America. So you have to ask yourself, these stories that you hear, are they purely myth, or is there some truth in it?
Yeah.
And it kind of shattered me. That did that. Shit, this is exactly the same story as the one that I've been carrying around and tell. When I'm in company, I'll tell this story. I'm surprised you've not heard it before.
Yeah, you probably go to Edgar Allan Poe and something, and he's probably already written about it or something.
So there you go. I mean, a lot of the stuff you hear is. In England, we call them old wives' tales. I don't know what you call them in the States.
Folklore. But there is a term old wife thing.
Yeah.
It's died out a long time ago. But the thing with Ghost Adventure, and what you said, you hear noise or you hear a door open. those are everyday occurrences, and that's mostly what they show. Then they have these instruments that they could manipulate themselves and say, oh, we got this new electrical engineer invented this thing that can detect ghosts or figures and stuff like that. And most of the evidence they get, front and barring the instruments, are just everyday sounds. And then they add in, I'm using this special facial recognition that can.
I've seen the Matchstick Men with the. So the difference between Most Haunted and Ghost Adventurers is that Most Haunted was like, it was pretty sort of like raw tools. It was just people in rooms, and Yvette Fielding screaming every time she heard a noise. Now, when sort of like 6 years down the line, Ghost Adventurers came out, and they had all this high-tech equipment, and one of them, I don't know what this device is called, but apparently it's a camera that you point in the dark, and if a ghost is in that space, it kind of maps out like a matchstick man.
Yeah.
So I've seen that, and that's kind of, I wouldn't say compelling enough to make you believe. It's just, it's a little bit weird that out of nothing, something can appear.
Well, that's the thing. I'm all about the data, what I mean, and information. So I was maybe 12 years old. My parents were out. I'm home alone Saturday night at Chiller Theater is on. So I'm watching some scary movie. And all of a sudden there's a big bang upstairs. And I know for a fact no one's home. So I'm scared out of my wits. I go up there and a curtain blew and it knocked over a lamp. I mean, that's what it was, right? So then these guys are on TV saying, oh my God, you hear that upstairs? I mean, yeah, I've heard it upstairs before, and it was the curtain knocking off my lamp.
What I did like about Ghost Adventurers compared to Most Haunted is that they would initially go out of their way to investigate a noise. So if they heard a noise and it came from that room down there on the left, they would 9 times out of 10, poor old Aaron, he'd be sent down there to go in.
He's the clown
and investigate.
Right? So you have roles.
Yeah, what I did like about that is that Aaron might go in there and might see a window open. So it was like the wind blowing and stuff. And then it would come up debunked. Whereas Most Haunted never did that. They would hear a noise and straight away it's a ghost. It is spirit trying to reach out, and it was always backed up by Derek, Mary Loves Dick,
and of course,
Cora.
And of course, they didn't investigate that much or anything. They just took it at, And then there's a third show which was called Ghost Hunters, and that was a U.S. show.
Yep.
And they just used basic kind of everyday equipment to try to detect stuff. And they go in at night, and I guess night's more theatric. They say it's because sound and crap like that, but they would go on, and if nothing happened, they said nothing happened. There's no ghost here. I mean, but it was a boring show. You know what I mean? And then I go back to Ghost Adventures, which I know is probably mostly fake and everything. The Goatman's Ridge, Zach is possessed, and he can't stop himself from choking himself to death, and it just got me cracking up.
I seem to recall Ghost Adventures, one of the very, very early shows. I don't know what part of America it was, you may know. And it was called Bobby McKay's or Bobby Mackay's.
Yeah.
So where's that?
It's in, I think, either Tennessee. I think it's in Tennessee, Kentucky, or West Virginia or something. Bob Mackey.
Bob Mackey.
Yeah.
And it was a bar, right?
Yep. And it had a true scary history
Didn't
attached to it.
they say there was a demon in the cellar or something? And I think at that point, because like when you watch Ghost Adventurers now, Zach always he's a little bit like Bono. He always wears like sunglasses.
Yep.
And
he
didn't
wears
he say he's
fingerless
honest, like,
gloves.
he does.
I don't know why,
I know, yeah.
you know.
But didn't he say that after Bobby Mackey's, he had to start wearing glasses because his eyes became affected.
Yeah.
And that's why he always wears glasses now.
Nick Groff, who was part of the show at the time, he never wanted to go back. He said whatever was there, he was scared of it. And
Wow.
I think that led to the split, or part of it, because there was times where Nick's like, no, I ain't going there.
Yeah, I think he had a pair of balls on him, whereas Aaron would just like, Aaron, go and jump in that river. He would do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a ghost.
Whereas Nick Graff would say, "Fuck you, I'm not doing that." You know.
Yeah. But and going back to the equipment, I mean, you got to collect data somehow.
Yep.
And if you're going to have a show that lasts 28 seasons or 20 years, you have to make every show interesting, or else it just loses the audience. And that's what happened to Ghost Hunters. I mean, they were plain Jane.
Was that a network show?
On Sci-Fi, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And, they were very serious. They were at Eastern Penitentiary in Pennsylvania, which was supposed to be one of it's the top haunted place. Atrocious shit happened there, crap like that. It was from the Civil War, and they built onto it and shit. And so Ghost Hunters went there, and two of their inspectors, or whatever they call themselves, they saw something that scared the shit out of them, and they came running to these guys.
But did the viewers see it? Or?
No, but the two main guys are like, well, did you capture it? I mean, why did you run back? And they're like, well, we were scared, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, you never run from a situation. You capture evidence. And 100%. And running back to us makes us look juvenile and everything, screaming and shit, right? So they were very pissed off at these guys that did that, because they wanted to be a serious show. At least that was their, front thing. I mean, they could have faked it at times as well, but they just, kept it a little bit more real. And every once in a while, something would happen, at some house, and they'd tell the owner, yeah, this is haunted, or something strange is going on here. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. What do you think? I mean,
well, here's the thing. So I'm kind of, you mentioned your experience about you heard a bang when you was in your house. So many years ago, it was about 2008. I was a prolific blogger. I used to write, once, sometimes twice a day, and publish what I used to research. And I used to research antidepressants. I was totally against the use of antidepressants. And I used to sort of like research stuff like that. And there was a girl, I won't mention her name, it wouldn't be fair, but there was a girl who died, and I reached out to her father, managed to get his email address, and we spoke, and I wouldn't say I became obsessed with this story, but it was so tragic that I thought, other people need to hear about this. It happened in Canada, and at the time it was America, and Britain was sort of like raising the issue. about the safety of these drugs. Anyway, I wrote a few stories about this girl, and I also created a slideshow video. And I needed permission, obviously, of a father and a mother. And I created this video, and I thought, what music? Because it was just a slideshow video, nothing like today. I thought, what music can I use? And I'm a big lover of musical scores, from the big major movies. And so the music I put to this was from John Barry, the composer, and it was Dances with Wolves. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of music.
I don't know if I can remember it. Yeah.
Anyway, I showed, I created the video and kept it private on YouTube, and then sent a link to this girl's father. And he said, Bobby, that is just wonderful. It's beautiful. You've captured everything. And I'm sure sort of like you're going to tap in to people to get this message out there. Anyway, with that, I got an invite to Canada, something completely separate from this issue, and it was to give a talk about my work, on antidepressants. And got in touch with the father again. I said, "Hey, I'm coming to Canada," and he said, "Oh, fantastic! I'll meet up with you." So at the time, I had my dog Ben, who was a big sort of like cross boxer Rhodesian Ridgeback, and I thought, "Oh, who's going to look after my dog?" And the people that I was giving the talk for, they said, "Listen, go out there and get the best dog sitter that you can. We will pay. You can stop at your place. We will pay." So I did my research and got in touch with this couple that looked after dogs and would stay at your place. And when they arrived at mine, I looked at him and I thought, "I've seen you before." And I asked him, I was straight up, I said, "Your face, I recognize it. I've seen you before." And he said to me, "I'm in Birmingham city centre a lot. I hand out Bibles.
Oh God.
I'm really into Jesus." And I said, "Okay, fair enough." I told him straight up, I'm an atheist.
Are you agnostic or atheist?
Well,
and that's the
kind of. I'm like Ricky Gervais on this. I'm an agno-atheist. I don't know. In other words, and he said to me, "Try talking to Jesus." And I thought, "Oh fuck, here we go." And he said, "Don't talk to him the way you think you're supposed to talk to him. Talk to him like a friend." So that night I hired them, and that night I went to bed, and it was dark, and I always used to put classical music on the radio next to my bed because it used to make me drop off, something smooth and calming. And I turned round, lying on the bed with my dog, and said, "Hey, Jesus, mate, if you're there, give me a sign." At that point, Dances with Wolves was the next tune played on the radio. Now, coincidence or not, I do not know, but I will tell you another thing that happened during that time I was writing about this girl. It made me feel really, really sad that this young girl would take her life. And I remember I took an afternoon nap. I was lying on the bed and no radio on. I thought, just need to sleep. As I put my head on the pillow, I heard Nessun Dorma from Pavarotti. And I thought, it must be workers outside, So I lifted my head off the pillow, and the music faded away. I put my head back down. Nessun Dorma came on. couldn't believe it. The next time I spoke with her father was a few days later. He was talking and he was talking about his daughter. And I thought, I've got to ask him. And I said, mentioned her name, did she ever listen to Pavarotti? And bear in mind, she was 17 years of age when she died. He said, actually, yeah, she did. She used to listen to Pavarotti a lot. Now, finally, he told me that he and his wife, they were trying to cope with her death. And they were going to see a psychic medium. And I said to him, just watch yourself. It's kind of high profile, your daughter's death. It was all across the Canadian press. So again, I'm drifting off to sleep. And for some unknown reason, I keep seeing Winston Churchill. And there's a very famous picture of Winston Churchill, and he's doing that.
Yeah, the peace sign.
Okay. Well, it was V. It was V for victory. Yeah. It was V for victory. Anyway, a couple of days later, I'm talking with this girl's father, and I said, how did it go with the psychic medium? And he said, she said a lot of things that she could have got from the press, but there was one thing that really baffled me and my wife. She kept seeing the letter V.
Yeah.
And that was, for me, that is the only time, by the way, that I've ever experienced anything like that. And during the course of my 16 years of work, I've been fucking surrounded by death. And that was one of the major reasons that I stepped back from it and, wanted to venture into this new world of podcasting. But I did actually stop at the house and he showed me where his daughter took a life. And his wife was there as well. And they took me down to the basement.
Really?
And this girl's clothes were there. And because I had this connection with her, I sort of like picked her clothes up and smelt them. And his wife said, take something back to England that belonged to our daughter. That's what she would have wanted. And I picked up a glove, and out of this glove came a bangle. And her mother didn't know. She said she must have, when she took a glove off, the bangle became trapped. And I had that on my desktop for many, many years. And she'll always have a very special place in my heart, So that was my one experience. I think they call it when you hear but don't see. They call it clairaudience. That's the term they use.
Like clair audio.
Yeah, so it's probably Greek, or Latin or something like that. So that was my my one experience where I was really in the zone as well, because I was and again, I won't use the word obsession, but I just really wanted this story out. And I guess you could put tiredness into it because I was working overtime on this story, and I was
going to the pub.
Well, no, I was waiting for the coroner's report because of the time difference between England and Canada. I was waiting for the coroner's report to come out, and then talking on the phone with the father on British time when the coroner's court had just adjourned. So yeah, I was carrying all of that around, but it was. It was truly fascinating. So I researched it, and there's a thing called clairaudience where you hear shit, you just don't see it, and then it's up to the individual to try and decipher what it means. But fascinating.
But then, eyes first, right? We saw the brick fly through, and then you hear something, but what about the other senses, right? I mean, I just tasted a ghost cookie, a cookie
Well,
that wasn't there,
there are things like that. So it's like, so seeing,
I mean,
hearing, taste,
we
touch,
have
smell.
senses. Yeah. How do
Yeah.
we work with the outside world and stuff?
I have smelt stuff in the past, like living
Yes.
here in
Yeah.
Boquete. You often get sweet aromas. We've
Dripping.
always got the doors open here, and like the blinds are up,
Yeah.
and
There's this plant right up there that
it's the
is so
trumpet.
sweet. Yeah.
The trumpet,
Oh my
yeah,
God. It gives up.
hallucinogenic
Yeah.
apparently.
It's
Yeah.
hallucinogenic, but very toxic.
So you often smell them, and yeah, there's been many times where, not just here, by the way, where I've smelt sort of like certain things, and think, where's that coming from?
From, yeah.
But
Memory
it
is
could
the,
be absolutely anywhere.
yeah.
Memories, like with music, with me, Jeff. I can hear stuff from the 1970s. Sparks. Do you remember the band called Sparks? This town ain't picking up for the bus.
I was born in '66, so I really
Oh, okay.
wasn't. I wasn't really getting into music until
Ah,
'78.
it was around
Yeah.
about 70, 74, 75.
And this is 1998, by the way, not or
Right.
1980. Yeah, 90. Well, yeah, 1978.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So but even now,
50
like
years ago.
even now, I can hear music, and it will take me back
Transports,
to a memory.
absolutely.
It just really sort of like resonates with me. So if it's not, if music isn't there, what else can take you back to those places? So
Yeah.
yeah. So what's the next program you've got lined up, Jeff? That is to do with the paranormal.
Well, I used to love Destination Truth, and they would go to different places. And one place they actually did go to isn't far from here. It's Coiba Island, and like this Air Force trooper or Navy SEAL guy went there,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, and he said it was out of. He went to the Darien Gap. He's been all over dangerous areas, and he said this place, everything's trying to kill you, and literally, if you just drove south for about 15 minutes, or no, half an hour, get on this boat, and it's right in the bay of where we live, and there's seawater crocodiles, the dart frogs, and the thing that really blew me away was when it rains, it mixes with these leaves of a tree and creates an acidic solution, and it
Jesus.
burnt through his clothes, and he showed the pictures. But this is where they had Noriega had his own prison and did horrible shit. So ghost hunters went there, ghost adventures. I mean, almost every ghost thing
So
has gone there.
what have they picked up when they've been there? And first of all, how far away? I seem to remember talking to you about this place,
Mm-hmm.
and then I said, "Hey man, let's go there." And then one of us, it was either me or you, researched it, and
You.
and this guy said, "Man, this is fucking the worst place that I've ever been to. Do not go there."
And I said, screw it after that. I don't care.
So how far away from Boquete is it?
I don't know. It's a really big island, and if you look at Panama coming from the east, there's this big, what do you call a thing that drops down, a big land mass, and then there's Boquete, David, Boca, Chica, stuff like that, and Coiba is right in that that area. So Destination Truth went there. Ghost
So
Hunters went
so
there.
what did they pick up?
Nothing.
did did
No
did
one picked up anything.
did any of the crew become possessed?
Nope.
Oh
Um,
shit!
uh, the only thing something happened is someone thought they saw an animal run by, and it hit a piece of wood, and then there was a sound like the ceiling, something fell from the ceiling, and when they showed the ceiling, it was. I mean, it was falling apart anyways,
Yeah.
and shit was
So
falling
it could have been
away.
just like
Yeah,
debris and stuff
yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
blast of wind.
So that's where even like people talked about glass moving on a bar,
Mm.
right? If the water underneath the glass creates this in between surface,
Yep.
and if it's slanted and there's enough liquid, the glass will just start sliding
Yeah.
on its own, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and that's something we can explain scientifically, and it's not paranormal. Maybe a couple hundred years ago, they would consider it witchcraft or whatever.
They possibly would. There's a place in Dudley just outside of Birmingham. It's a pub. It's called the Crooked House.
Hmm.
And they call it the Crooked House because of, the foundation
Yeah.
over the years.
You ever hear the poem?
Sunk.
There was a crooked man who lived in a crooked house.
I have not heard the poem, but Stuart Adamson, Big Country, used those lyrics in a
those-
song. What are we working for? Yeah, which I actually used on AI and got a different version of it. But yeah, so there's a pub called the Crooked House. I think it's in Dudley, which is just outside of Birmingham, my hometown. Like a lot of Peaky Blinders was shot there. It's called the Black Country. And when you go into the Crooked House, there's a shelf and it's like that. And if you put a penny at the bottom, it rolls upwards.
Yeah.
But it's all an illusion.
Yep.
It's the foundations of the place.
I don't know if I would like so Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters went to this road, and they say if you stop your car, your car will be pushed uphill, and you will see hands.
Yep.
And one of the shows, and I think it was Ghost Adventures, which would be surprising as hell, but one of them actually got surveyors in and said, even though it looks like this, you're actually going downhill.
It's an illusion.
Yeah, I mean they measured everything with surveying equipment, and they're saying it's actually going downhill.
Well, that's that is the thing about humans. Eyes, our eyes deceive us, and so do our ears.
Everything. I mean, there's neutrinos going through us right now, and here's the funny thing. I read if neutrinos went through a piece.
What's a neutrino? Sorry,
I don't know. I'd have to look up the definition, but I imagine it's very small mass. I think it's outputted by the sun. Even if they try to capture it deep under a cave, I mean, it just flows through. And today I read if you took a piece of lead that was 1 light year long, for us or whatever, and you sent a neutrino through it, the chances of it hitting any particle or atom of the lead is 50%.
Jesus.
A light year.
Jesus.
And that's how small it is. So we know things exist. Physicists try to measure it, but then they're building the tools and observing with human senses. So sometimes, it's kind of funky because you're building an instrument that's supposed to be looking for this thing that you think that exists, and then you're observing the data and output with your sight and your mind. How do we know it? I
watched a video today, and this is touching upon what you just mentioned there. There's apparent alien footage that was released, I think I may be wrong here, in 1997. And when it first came out, it was very sort of like grainy as all these UFO alien films are. And it's not the alien autopsy one, which was a proven fake. This one is actually of an alien vomiting black bile comes out. So I was watching a podcast today, and it was a British guy interviewing this guy from Chicago who was kind of made it his life's ambition. And the English guy said, listen, it's a 3 minute footage. There's no sound. And the guy that's been investigating it, he was sent this material by this insider that used to work for the government. And he said, why is there no sound? And he said, well, I didn't want anybody to be identified, by their voice, because there was a bunch of, lab experts in there with this apparent alien. And the English guy, and I thought, fair enough that he's asked this question. He said, a lot of people have said during the 3 minutes of this interview and this alien being, and it's your typical grey, big bulbous head, almond eyes, 2 holes and a slit for the mouth. He said a lot of people have said during the 3 minutes, the alien's eyes do not blink once, which suggests it's probably a puppet. And this guy came up with a great answer. What makes you think they blink?
Yeah, do they?
Because we're thinking from our perspective, we couldn't go 3 minutes without blinking. Yeah. He said, what makes you think they blink? And I think that's the mindset that we need to get into. Just because it doesn't fit into our world doesn't mean that it's false.
And that's where we try to fit everything in our world.
And we do. But that's how the human brain works. You know?
I mean, we make faces out of patterns and say, oh my God, look at that, and Bigfoot and all that crap. But if an alien visits our planet, most likely it has warp drive, and it would treat us like ants, basically, because we would be so far behind. I mean, do you come out of your house and say, hello, bees, hello, ants, la, la, la.
There's a lot of, like the UFO subject is something that I've loved as a kid, and I did give it up.
But it'll make a good show.
It would, and we will do a deep dive into that at some point. But I know there's a lot going on in the world of ufology. They're actually called UAPs now, but there's a lot going on. I think November there's going to be a big meeting in Congress with apparent whistleblowers that have worked on alleged crashed retrieval programs, so that's going to be interesting. But of course, it's just going to be one person telling a story with absolutely no evidence at all. At what point do you take it on faith that these things are real? And here's me, agno-atheist. I can't accept God on faith. And yet I really do lean towards the belief in non-human intelligence, whether they're from up there or whether they're from down there, because we do not investigate our oceans as much as we put stuff up there. We don't put stuff down there. So there may be stuff down there that we just don't know about. That's something we'll have to ask members of the Titanic, I guess, next time Zach gets in touch with them and gets possessed, or if Derek Acora sees a Richard and Mary on there, two very popular names.
But the funny thing is, the ghost thing, I'm pretty much agnostic on almost everything, right? It's like, I trust my senses. This is all I can see. Could there be more? Absolutely. So I don't say yes or no to almost everything. Maybe that's a weak stance, but it's just, I know for a fact we don't sense everything. And things are happening around us we cannot sense. And so I'll give it that, right? And if you come, but out of everything, uh, ghost versus the alien footage, some of the stuff Bob has showed me and I have seen, there's some crazy ass shit for UFOs or UAFs. That, I mean, these people are not crazy. These people have to go through a psychological test and everything else, and not many military pilots have seen stuff they cannot explain. Things dropping 30,000 feet, stops right at the water, and so those things, and that is from uh, radar. There was 3 types of sensors that sense the same thing, and then you add on humans saw it. So you really can't. I mean, 3 different types of sensors. Many humans saw it. You just can't explain it away.
This is what the call's for, like, in the UFO world, and the UFO. I think they call it hashtag UFO Twitter. It is really fucking toxic. You can't say that you believe in Joe Blogs, who posted a video, because you'll get hundreds of people saying he's a known hoaxer. And this is all across the spectrum. You've got Lou Elizondo, one of the most prominent voices out there, but he's got his haters that nobody on Twitter, or it's called X now, are in line with one another. And this is social media all over, You'll always get one sort of like dissenting voice, and that dissenting voice creates other dissenting voices. I experienced that during the work that I did, and I now, even though I'm not part of UFO Twitter, I'm more of an observer. I see it going on. It's exactly the same thing that I went through, in a different world, a different subject. But I see it happening all the time. Now, interestingly, there is a meeting with, whether it's Congress, I don't know, but
I think it's Congress.
So it's November, I think the 17th, and they're going to bring forward whistleblowers. Now, many whistleblowers have already come forward. David Grush, for example, and he said certain things, and a lot of people say, well, it's all hearsay. But it was really interesting to see what happened to him. Now, in the world of government and drug companies, which was my world for many years, when you go up against them, shit happens. So I remember I had this really, really hot chick get in touch with me, via the internet. Oh, you're doing great work, blah, blah, blah. And we spoke for many days. And it turns out that the pictures that she sent me of herself was actually pictures of a porn star. So I thought, this is a setup, and it's a setup from GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, because I was really gunning for them, Now, the same thing happens to whistleblowers. David Grush came out and said what he said, and it went viral. And then all of a sudden, the police release records and doctors release records of the night that David Grush had a mental breakdown, and threatened his wife, which was way before he came out and did the whistleblower thing. but this is like it's like politics now, and we can see it happening now, like in politics. You've got one side against the other, saying bad things. They said this,
well, even
3 years ago, and
even in a court trial, one of the tactics of defense is tear down,
100%.
the other person.
100%.
That's all they do.
Heard a story once that a guy working for a law firm, he was part of a team in court going up against this pharmaceutical company. I won't mention the name because I can't be too sure who it was, but he was part of the law team, and it's very Hollywood, this, and I'm sure it's probably happened in Hollywood movies, but when he came out of the courtroom, he found a note and an empty bullet case underneath his windscreen wiper. And the note was pretty much saying, we know where you live, sort of thing. But that is that's another podcast,
Yeah, that's a whole different, because we both kind of are. I mean, we're both kind of the same boat about paranormal, and we're both in the same boat about the UAFs. And the thing is people think you're a little bit crazy or something, but paranormal is just something we haven't understood yet. So if there really is ghosts, if there really is aliens, we just haven't encountered them yet, or got enough. We're discovering different species of bugs every day, and animals every day. So we haven't even figured out, shit on Earth. And then, and that's where my kind of agnostic comes in. It's like
I am, as much as and you and I have spoke many Fridays, and by the way, this is the reason why we started the podcast, because we tend to have sort of like a lot of people over here on Fridays, and we haven't done that for quite a while because of the weather and various illnesses. Jeff's had sort of like treatment on his back, and I've had issues as well. But me and Jeff always tend to sit down with each other, maybe not at the start of the night, and we just do fucking deep dives on shit, And I think it was Jeff who said to me, we should do a podcast. And that's what sort of like prompted me to, what a great idea. I really want to give up the blog work, and I need something else in my life, apart from my good woman. I need something to sort of like, hang my hat on and kind of leave a legacy, when I'm not here anymore. And I'm really, really glad that we've done this, and we've spoke about this topic tonight on Halloween. And we'll be deep diving into other stuff as well. What do you want to talk about next, Jeff?
Okay.
In the next show, by the way.
Oh, next show. Well, it could be UAFs.
UAPs, yeah.
Or UAPs.
Yeah, UAPs.
I mean, I like serial killers. I watch documentaries on serial killers.
Who doesn't love a good serial killer?
And it's more, even in high school, I'm trying to decide what I was going to do. And I fell partially into psychiatry, only because I was interested in serial killers and why their brain, and even that's kind of paranormal. We haven't the brain. Oh my God, we don't even understand the brain that much.
It's a bit of a misnomer, paranormal. When you say the word paranormal, people automatically think of ghosts or UFOs or whatever. But with serial killers, it really is paranormal because it's something beyond normal. And I'm guessing that's what paranormal means. It's not normal. So it's not normal for a man to go out, Ted Bundy, for example,
Yeesh.
to go out and kill a load of young girls, like, you know. So it is something that needs investigating, and it does fascinate me too. My partner, by the way, she's not here, she's away on vacation with some friends, which gives me a great opportunity to watch stuff that I know she wouldn't like. And I'm watching something on Netflix that just dropped the other day, and it's a documentary on the Zodiac.
Yeah, I was watching that.
And it is really, really good. And they kind of sort of like finger pointing at this one guy who was actually a school teacher. Now, I've known some complete psychopaths in my time, and many of them were school teachers. That was my upbringing in a Catholic school. You know, caned for farting, or sort of like running out of line, getting a trainer on the back of that. That's fucking
I was in the Catholic
psychopathic.
school. I got knuckled on my head and broke a ruler over my hand.
Absolute sadists.
Yeah.
Absolute sadists. I think we've pretty much covered what we wanted to cover tonight.
Yep.
And
Introduce ourselves.
We've introduced ourselves, and if you want to know anything more, you can drop us a line. Email address is on the website where you're going to hear this podcast, and hopefully we're going to get it across all platforms as well, or as many as we can.
And please write in
including
suggestions, you know, if you want, you know, stuff you're interested in. And
100%.
like I said, we're just two guys sitting around.
Two boring old men. Two boring old men just chewing the cud. Yeah, so if there's anything, and, you know, this goes for Spanish people or people that live in Boquete, if there's something you
please
want us to touch on, or if you've got a local business that you want us to plug, let us know. Just drop us a line, and we'll leave a link on the bottom of the video after the outro. The outro, by the way, is going to be a song which I uploaded a segment of it onto TikTok and had a good response. And it's a song about Boquete, and I sort of like created a video for it. So hope you enjoy it. Jeff, man, it's been a pleasure.
Yep.
Love you, man.
Yep.
See you soon.
Love you, brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the hills where the coffee blooms, the morning mist and the sun breaks through, a melody of rivers flow. In Boquete, my heart's aglow. Oh, Boquete, you're a dream in green, with your mountains high and your sky so serene. From the hummingbirds to the winding trails, in your embrace, my spirit sails. Na 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 na, na sing it again. Na 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 na, come on. The cool breeze whispers through the trees, dancing leaves in a gentle tease. Market stalls with colors bright, every corner feels so right. Oh, Boquete, you're a dream in green, with your mountains high and your sky so serene. From the hummingbirds to the winding trails, in your embrace, my spirit sails. Na 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 na, sing it. Na 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 na, come on, sing it. Coffee beans and the laughter shared, stories told and the love we dared. Every sunset paints the sky. In Boquete, we'll never say goodbye. Oh, Boquete, through the winding trails. In your embrace, my spirit sails. Na 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 na, sing it, yeah. Na 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 na, come on. So here's to you, sweet paradise. In your beauty, I find my life. Forever in this tranquil space. Boquete, my heart's embrace. Na 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 na, sing it, yeah. Na 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 na, Boquete, Boquete. Na 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 na, sing it, yeah. Na 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 na, come on, sing it. Na 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 na, sing it, yeah. Na 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 na, Boquete, oh Boquete. You're dreaming green. Na 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 na. Your mountains high and your sky so serene. Na 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 na. Come on, from the hummingbirds to the running trails. Na 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 na. In your embrace, my spirit